as I understand, Mr Farage, you've got a big speech this morning setting out your party's plans for immigration. What would they be?
They would be, number one, to be honest, and to admit that as members of the European Union, the other parties would rather we didn't even discuss the fact that we can't control our borders because we have a total open door to southern and eastern Europe. But once we've established that fact, it's to look to the future. You know, immigration has become one of the big negatives in British society and British politics. Over half the population, take a dim view of what has happened as a result of open borders. And what we want to do is to say this. Immigration can be a positive. What we need to do is take back control of our borders and then put in place an Australian-style point system so we can control both the quantity and the quality of who comes to this country.
Could I ask you, have we not got that already? Obviously it doesn't apply to in a European context, but outside Europe, do we not have a points-based entry system?
If we have an open door to 500 million people, it's pretty pointless to think we have an immigration policy of any kind at all. And one of the odd things that's been happening is we've found people from Commonwealth countries and the rest of the world who were really quite ably qualified, who found it difficult to get into Britain because we've got the open door to so much unskilled migrant labour. We would end discrimination based on the country that people come from. Let's just look and find the best people.
OK, so you want the best and you'll forget the rest?
We want the best people, and we do not believe this country needs any more unskilled migrant labour. We already have a lot of it in this country. We also have a lot of Britons that are out there trying to get work and finding it very difficult.
Now, you don't need me to tell you that the typical cry and retort back to you at this stage is, no, but immigration contributes to our economy. How would you reply to that?
I would reply to that by saying, tell that to the mother who can't get her 5-year-old into the local primary school because it's full. Tell that to people in parts of the country where the accident and emergency crisis over the course of this winter is chiefly caused by a very big increase in the population of the local area. And tell that to people out there earning minimum wage or on low pay who have seen their wages compressed over the course of the last 10 years because of this oversupply in the unskilled labour market.
So basically you're saying whether they contribute to the economy or not, they're still going to use the infrastructure, so one price negates the other one. They're still going to use schools, still going to use hospitals, roads, that sort of thing. So it doesn't matter what they're bringing in, it doesn't compensate for what they're going to use. I
think there is an argument here that says that actually some things are more important even than discussing money. And what I mean by that are our communities, our sense of cohesion, our feeling of togetherness in where we live, in our villages, our towns and our cities. And I think there's no doubt that over the last 15 years, our societies have become more divided because we've pursued a wholly irresponsible immigration policy. Okay. So I think community really matters.
Yes, well, you've just broken up the community here in the studio because my newspaper reviewers, one of them in particular, is going apoplectic here beside me, so I'm going to let her speak, and this is Natasha Devon. Natasha, this is Mr Farage.
Mr Farage, whenever I hear you speak about immigration, which is a lot because you rarely seem to speak about anything else, you always make this connection between immigration and resources and public services. Now, as Eamon pointed out, whether they're skilled or unskilled, immigrants are bringing in consistently year on year over the past decade more than they take out. So if you genuinely care about resources, that would suggest to me that public money is being misspent, it's not being directed in the right way. Why are you not focusing on how we are spending money rather than scapegoating immigrants constantly?
Well, let me be clear. I'm not scapegoating anybody, but let me be clear that with an Australian-style point system, with a positive future for immigration, anyone that comes to Britain will have to bring their own medical insurance, they'll have to prove they haven't got a criminal record, they'll have to show they haven't got a life-threatening disease, and they won't qualify for any benefits until they've paid into the system for a period of 5 years. Now, once we get to that position, there is no question that you and I will agree that economically and socially, immigration is a very good thing for the country.
Now, a lot of people will have listened to Mr Farage's answer and said, that's just common sense. They used to be talking. Why does that not appeal to you?
It makes me feel uncomfortable because there's a lot of people who feel very strongly about immigration. That's one truth. And resources are no doubt overstretched. That's another truth. But making a connection between those two truths and then coming up with the answer that immigrants are responsible for overstretched resources is the sort of thing that Hitler would do.
They're not helping those resources. Is it not better for you to feel uncomfortable than the country to be broke, may be the argument?
I think that we are misdirecting our attention, and we need to look at public spending and how we're spending public money.
OK, let's talk numbers now. And you don't want to put numbers on all of this. Why do you not want to put numbers on who you're going to let in?
Oh, well, look, last year there were 27,000 people who came to Britain who, without a doubt, would have passed the Australian-style point system test. But, of course, that figure will vary year on year. What I'm saying is we're setting out a policy today that will drastically reduce net migration into the United Kingdom, but I don't want to obsess about caps. You know, there is this sort of cap culture where the media and political parties are always talking about caps and floors and ceilings. I'm not sure the public want to hear that anymore. What I'm trying to do is to move the immigration debate on to talk about a positive future for immigration in this country, and, can I say, a fairer immigration system for people coming from the Commonwealth and other parts of the world.
But why have you moved it on from the party conference towards the end of last year, where you very strongly had figures of 50,000 cap?
I want to return to normal immigration. And normal immigration from Windrush right up to the turn of the century was somewhere between 20 and 50,000 people a year net coming into the United Kingdom. These policies that we're setting out today will get us back to normal immigration and get us back to having a proper, calm debate. And
does Stephen Woolfe, your migration spokesman, does he agree with that? Because obviously the position's changed from the announcement he made at the party conference.
It is highly unlikely that a figure as high as 50,000 would even be reached. And as I say, we want the emphasis to be on the positive arguments we're making, not this total obsession with caps, floors and ceilings.
And that puts a bit of clear air between you and the Conservatives, doesn't it? Nice dig in the belly to the Tories there with that one.
Well, they, of course, did have their target of tens of thousands a year. And we saw the figures last week, and it was nearly 300,000 people in the last year. It is totally out of control. Our population has gone from 55 million 25 years ago to 64 million now. On current rates of immigration, we're headed towards 75 or 80 million people in 15 to 20 years. I don't think that will benefit and bring a better lifestyle to people in this country.
OK. Well, it looks as though you're heading towards a seat, according to the pundits and the people that crunch the figures, in South Thanet come the election on May the 8th. And then if whoever is in power, and you're needed for the balance of power, when it comes to negotiations with Mr Miliband or Mr Cameron, will this be a red line for you, this immigration thing?
Well, we cannot get back control of immigration. We can't put in place the Australian-style point system, which the overwhelming majority of the British public want, until first we get a referendum on our relationship with the European Union so that we can take back control. At the moment, Mr Miliband says he won't hold a referendum under any circumstances. So, if UKIP did find themselves in a strong position, there wouldn't really be any point in even having a conversation with Mr Miliband. Mr Cameron reluctantly now has offered a referendum, having for some time said he wouldn't have one, and that's a conversation we'd have. But as I say, people do need to understand this. We cannot have a proper immigration policy if we stay members of the European Union.
Just before I say goodbye to you, a quick round-up, big response to all that you've been talking about today, Isabel?
Yeah, our viewers have been listening to this. Simon Mason's got in touch. He said, can we actually see the mechanics of this, Mr Farage? How many points for a hairdresser or a mechanic, and who decides? And Tommy adds to that, how many points would Mr Farage's German wife score?
Well, she would have scored a lot of points because when she came to Britain, she and settled here, she was in a high-earning job, and paying for herself. Stephen Woolfe, our immigration spokesman, he'll be the main speaker today, not me. You know, this is not a one-man band, UKIP, far, far from it, and he will lay out these points today and explain not only how the system will be put in place, but how we put a watchdog in charge of making sure that it happens properly.